The cost of living in New York area is high. Not exactly breaking news, I know, but you may not realize just how high or the implications of that. Middle class on Long Island, for example, could become an endangered species in a new report and within a few decades. In the Hudson Valley, the costs are so shocking that people will need to save staggering amounts just to stay there through retirement. Now, those are the findings of a new study by the nonpartisan group called Reclaim New York. And joining me now, Reclaim New York Executive Director Brandon Muir and community activist and Putnam Valley resident Vera. And guys, thank you very much. And you crunch the numbers here, and it's pretty sobering what you found. And give an idea that, and used a few examples. You got a couple. Let's say bringing home almost 80 grand, 78 grand in Tarrytown, for example. And for people who don't know, one of the T-towns, nice bedroom community, but not exactly Scarsdale here or something. And after state taxes, federal taxes, and every other expense, they're left with pretty much bupkis here. And they're fighting just to save. And that's if they're doing all right and they're bringing home the paychecks.
Right. Well, you see it at all income points. You mentioned 80,000, but all the way down from 40,000 up to 150,000, the fact is people can't save. The challenge for us was to really get into why. And as you begin to break down income taxes and property taxes, sales and excise taxes, it actually becomes very clear. New York, and especially the Hudson Valley, is a leader in nearly all of those categories, and leader being they're the worst in the country. So very quickly you begin to understand no matter how much money you make, people are struggling to survive.
And you know what, Dan, one of the things that struck us was, especially with the gaps between the have and the have-nots here, that's one of the things we're seeing. And it's a story today in the city here, and obviously gentrification, and again, not a headline, but the distance between, if you're in the bottom third and the upper third, it's starting to pull the middle down to the bottom too, right?
Absolutely. And the problem is that young couples won't move into our area. So as someone reaches their retirement age and they want to retire, they see that they can't hold on to their home with the tax rates the way they are between the school tax and the town tax and the county tax. They want to sell their home. They can't sell their home unless they give it away. And it's just struggling. Me personally, I'm a year away from retirement. Okay, and then I have a whole group. I have, we call the concerned taxpayers of Putnam Valley. And it's the consensus of most of us that we're in the same position. Well, when we're going to retire, our pension and Social Security are not barely going to pay our taxes, and if we have a mortgage left over. So what's the alternative? To move out, to move to the Carolinas, to move to Florida, to move to someplace where it is much more affordable.
And one of the scariest things that Dan said, Brandon, is pension. Think about the generation. That was a generation ago. How many people really have pensions anymore? And your report broke it down to the different stages of life. From a couple wants to get married, decisions of when they can get their first house, when they want to start a family, when they can afford to start a family, I should say, let alone when they can retire here. And all those decisions chronologically keep getting pushed back and back, all because of the bottom line, right?
If you're 23 and you just got your college degree, you're making a big decision about where life should be. Should it be in the Hudson Valley where you grew up, or on Long Island where you grew up, or Dallas or Florida where you're not going to pay any state income tax, where houses are more affordable? What it comes down to is that we have to understand that it's essentially a free agent market, right? Our public officials make choices every day about public policy, and those have impacts, and people are saying, I can't afford to live here. I mean, we've led the country in the last 15 years in outward migration, and it's not because people don't want to be here. The number one reason cited is affordability. Until we start to address that relative to other states, we can't expect it to change.
And I know I've moderated debates here, and when you say the word property taxes, you can almost feel the ground tremble here, because that's what defines it. That said, though, one of the reasons people want to move here and want to live is the quality of life. And it will be argued, I know it's easy to demonize government and all the rest here, but we have things in this area that a lot of parts of the country don't have. So what would have to give to make maybe the net take-home pay more, but what would we have to live without? Did you guys figure that out?
So part of this is really the exchange of what we pay for and what we get. On our website, reclaimnewyork.org, we created a calculator, which is really the backbone of this report. And this is about helping citizens have an honest and accurate conversation with public officials, because you're exactly right. If we looked at this relationship as a contractor, right? Someone who's fixing the roof on your house. You're going to pay them X and they're going to fix a roof, and you're going to have an expectation of roughly what that should cost and what kind of quality you're getting back. But if we don't have a way to quantify income taxes at the federal, state, and even local level, property taxes, sales taxes on that cheeseburger you buy, excise taxes that you don't even see at the gas tank, those all add up. And so what we wanted to do is set the table to say, this is what I make at the beginning and end of the year. This is the total number of taxes I pay. With that much money on the table, what should I be getting back? And we're now at least having an informed conversation about what government should be providing and whether or not we're getting real value for our taxes.
And Dan, for me, it seems that the tipping point for this conversation to escalate, it's not just here, by the way. You're starting to see this even for places where the property taxes aren't what they have here, is I want to retire here, but I can't afford it. You said it yourself. The other thing is college. I'm sure the conversations from your friends who now, or even if their grandparents are looking at their kids who are trying to figure out how they're going to make the nut right, they're saving less than 5%. How the heck do you afford 30, 40, 50 grand a year, even more than that, in college for every kid for every year?
Well, there's a whole other problem. Our school taxes, where we are $48 million for 1,700 kids. It's about $29,000 per child. Now, it wouldn't be bad if, it's always bad, but it wouldn't be too bad if the children that were graduating were competent enough to go into college and just take their 4-year degree. The problem is that we're ranked about 200 in the list of New York State. We're 60% competency rate.
At the state level,
At the state level. So their first year of school that these children are going in, they're taking all remedial classes. So actually it's going to take 5 years to get a 4-year degree, and if the parents are now paying $29,000 just for high school for their children to go, and now they're going to pay another $30,000, $40,000, like you said, for college, it's going to take them 5 years to get them to that degree.
And I think Dan brings up a great point, is that when you package information in a way that is nonpartisan and that people can understand it, whether it's a pie chart showing how much money you're making and where it's all going, or basic facts that New York State leads the country in the most expensive per student, and yet we don't lead the country in the best performing students. And you begin to see, again, this is the value question. If we're going to pay the most, fair enough, but let's expect the most out of it. Not happening.
And our audience is obviously watching us beyond the Valley borders. They're watching us throughout New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And this is not an issue, obviously, just relegated to one-bedroom community. We're seeing this across the board. And there's just a tipping point. I really wonder sometimes how people are getting by. And what I always hear is just one thing goes wrong. One person gets sick. Somebody gets hurt. Somebody loses a job. What then? So I think it's certainly a timely conversation. Brandon, Dan, thank you very much for a few minutes. I really appreciate it. Coming up next, everyone, we'll take a preview of the upcoming presidential debate and also some congressional debates that we're going to be broadcasting right here on RFL. Stay with us.